The morning sun rose over the community library, bright and unyielding, casting a harsh, high-contrast light across the dirt. But its warmth offered no comfort on this day. Instead, the glaring light glinted coldly off a pair of heavy steel handcuffs as two police officers clicked them tightly around Gwap's wrists. A collective gasp rippled through the gathered crowd as they surged forward, ready to defend her. Holding the angry crowd back with strained arms and shaking his head, warning them not to fight, because that was exactly what the police wanted. Gwap offered no resistance as she was roughly pushed into the back of a rusted police van. Looking out through the dirty wire mesh window, her eyes locked onto a chilling sight. There, standing just outside the commotion, was Uncle Joe. He was smiling broadly, a picture of smug satisfaction, casually adjusting a heavy gold ring on his finger. The heavy metal van door slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging her into isolation. In the echoing darkness, Gwap's own voice resonated from the shadows of her mind, reminding her that silence has a price tag, and it is usually paid in freedom. Shortly after, Gwap found herself inside the suffocating walls of the police station interrogation room. The afternoon heat was oppressive, and beams of harsh, hot sunlight cut through a high barred window, illuminating the beads of sweat pooling on her face. Across the metal table sat a menacing inspector, methodically tapping a baton against the desk. The rhythmic, irritating sound filled the tense silence until the inspector leaned forward, telling her that a brilliant girl like her should be in university instead of causing trouble for big men, offering to let her go home if she just signed a confession stating the 1974 map was fake. Gwap didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward, allowing her handcuffs to rattle sharply against the cold metal table as she matched his gaze with unwavering defiance, telling him that if she signed it, the price would be too high, so he could keep her right there. While Gwap sat behind bars, a chaotic storm raged on the outside. Legal documents spun wildly. Thick stacks of money changed hands under tables in dark rooms. And at the police station counter, a heartbroken Rebecca could only weep in deep desperation. Deep inside the cell block, the atmosphere was bleak. Gwap sat quietly in the corner of a dim, cramped cell, staring at the concrete floor alongside several other detained women. The muffled, chaotic noise of the police station echoed faintly through the iron bars. But sensing her heavy spirit, another inmate quietly stepped forward and gently handed her a cup of water. By mid-afternoon, the tension shifted to the Adderin House living room, where the afternoon light was hot and the old ceiling fan whirred loudly, doing little to cool the room. Rebecca paced back and forth frantically, her hands wringing with anxiety, while nearby, Tundi, the investigative journalist, sat hunched over a glowing laptop screen. Tund explained that the police were holding her without official charges because Joe was paying the DPO directly, meaning they would need a massive public outcry to force them to release her. Phoebe stood up abruptly, a spark of fierce determination igniting in her eyes as she grabbed her phone and a portable ring light, snapping open her tripod with a sharp, decisive click and declaring that she had 50,000 followers who loved drama, so it was time to give them some real justice instead. As evening began to fall, The golden light faded into deep shadows across Guap's cell, but she refused to let the walls consume her mind, picking up a small piece of debris to scratch numbers into the rough concrete wall, using the makeshift grid to teach her fellow inmates a clever memory trick until the heavy silence of the cell block was broken by the sound of soft, genuine laughter. In her mind, she knew that while you can lock up a person, an educated mind always finds a way to occupy any space. Meanwhile, across town, luxury shielded Uncle Joe from the chaos. He sat in his opulent, softly lit mansion, sipping an expensive glass of wine. Suddenly, his peace was shattered as his phone began buzzing wildly with a relentless, rapid-fire stream of notification pings. He looked down at the screen, and his face twisted in horror as he saw Phoebe's live broadcast going viral, displaying the original land documents for the entire world to see, with the hashtag #FreeGuaps trending at the very top. With a roar of anger, Uncle Joe slammed his wine glass onto the table, shattering it, and screamed for his people to track down that little girl's sister. The digital firestorm could not be contained, and by nightfall, the online outrage spilled directly onto the pavement. Mobilized by Phoebe's viral broadcast, a massive crowd of passionate youth gathered in the dark streets right outside the police station. The night completely illuminated by the glow of hundreds of phone screens and flashlights as they chanted for Guaps to be freed and the library to be saved. The steady, powerful beat of drums echoed through the streets, and inside the station, the atmosphere was reaching a boiling point. The DPO stood near the counter, peering nervously through the window at the swelling protest, sweating profusely under the dim fluorescent lights before turning around to find Uncle Joe standing silently in the shadows of the back office to tell him things were too hot. State headquarters was calling and he had to let her go. Uncle Joe's face went entirely dark, his expression murderous. Stepping deeper into the shadows of the back hallway, he pulled out a burner phone, rapidly dialed a number, and ordered Plan B to burn the library tonight and destroy the evidence completely. Moments later, back in the cell block, the heavy iron gates ground open with a harsh metallic screech, and a guard reached in, roughly pulling Guaps to her feet and telling her to pack her trash because she was discharged. The moment Guap stepped out into the cool night air, the waiting crowd erupted into deafening cheers, and a sea of camera shutters clicked rapidly as uplifting music filled the night. Phoebe rushed forward, throwing her arms around Guaps in a tight hug, all while keeping her phone camera streaming live to the world. But the celebration lasted only a heartbeat. Looking over Phoebe's shoulder, Guap's eyes suddenly widened with terror as she saw a thick, ominous plume of black smoke billowing high into the starlit sky, accompanied by the distant, crackling sound of fire and a wailing siren, causing her to cry out in realization. They ran through the streets, pushing past the crowd, but by the time they arrived, it was a waking nightmare. Massive, roaring orange flames were greedily consuming the wooden roof of the library, painting the dark sky in terrifying shades of fire. Desperate neighbors were throwing buckets of water into the inferno, but it was entirely fruitless as the wood snapped and groaned under the intense heat. On a ground nearby sat Mr. Balogun, weeping openly as his entire life's work burned to the ground. crying out to Gwen that everything, the books and the history, was gone. Gwap stared into the dancing flames, her heartbreak turning into a cold, sharp focus. When through the haze of smoke at the back of the building, she spotted movement. A figure clad in a dark hoodie, sprinting away from the scene while carrying an empty jerry can of petrol. A fast-paced suspense track kicked back in as Gwaps sprang to her feet and took off at a dead sprint, chasing the arsonist through the pitch-black, smoky alleyways behind the library. Shadows danced wildly against the brick walls as heavy breathing and footsteps crashed over scattered trash until, with a final, desperate burst of speed, Gwaps launched herself forward, tackling the figure hard into the dirt. They hit the ground with a heavy thud, and Gwaps scrambled up, violently pulling back the stranger's hood and letting out a sharp gasp. Staring up at her, trembling in the dirt, was the old classmate who had mocked her ambitions back in episode 5. When Gwaps demanded to know why they would burn their own history, the classmate burst into tears, shielding their face, crying out that Joe had paid their mother's medical bills and that everyone has a price. The next morning, a somber, heavy gray sky hung over the community. Where the library once stood, there was only total devastation, a smoldering, ash-covered ruin. The neighbors stood gathered around the perimeter, staring at the wreckage in an ominous, heartbroken silence as the soft morning wind blew a gentle layer of gray ash across the ground. Gwaps walked slowly into the very center of the ruins, her shoes crunching on the debris, and looked down through the dust until her eyes caught something amid the soot. Reaching down, she pulled a charred but intact page from the ash, recognizing the drawing she had made as a child of her future Gwaps self. As a soft, emotional piano cue began to play, her inner voice resonated with a newfound ironclad strength, realizing that though they thought they burned the evidence, they had only turned the pages into ash that they could write on again. With a fierce, unbreakable expression, Gwap stepped up onto a pile of broken brick, turning to face her silent, grieving community as a powerful, uplifting percussion track began to rise. She called out to them, declaring that while the building was burned, their minds were not, and that they would rebuild starting today, with Uncle Joe providing the funds. A sudden, powerful cheer erupted from the crowd, hope instantly cutting through the grief. But as the people began to shout her name, an unmarked black car pulled up quietly at the edge of the ruins. The heavily tinted window rolled down in a smooth motion to reveal a new character, a sharp, intensely focused female state prosecutor whose eyes were fixed on a thick official file resting on her lap, which bore the bold, undeniable label, Investigation Joseph Adarine.